Everyone, it's Lonk the Saint. Good to have you back once again. And how about that production value, huh? I've got a new title card. I've got my Christmas tree up in the background. I also was able to play around the video's quality a little bit, so hopefully this video will look a little bit sharper than some of my earlier ones. So yeah, life is good right now. I hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. And today, we're going to continue the series we started a few weeks ago, where we look at each of the colors on the color wheel. And today's color is going to be yellow. Now, within the game, Yellow's faction is known as Aztlan, and the Aztlan are ruled by the Magpie Corporation. Magpie is a mega corporation that specializes in weapons and medicine, and it has exploited the jungles as well as the native tribes in order to bring new technology to the world. So it has a very Incan, Mayan, South American native type of feel to it. How does this all translate into the game? Well, because it's under corporate rule, corporations don't necessarily react quickly. There's a lot of long-term planning, a lot of long-range thinking. So it's a very slow, very methodical color. It's looking to do nothing fast, but it's kind of looking to play a very long game indeed. So that often means you'll see minions with more health than they have power. One of the main abilities that Yellow has is Blight, which is a removal type of spell, but it's a very slow one at that. It also means you'll see a lot of minions with Defender, things like Maze of Yaku or Blood Idol, things of that nature. And it also has some units that can bolster others, like Olama Ring or Magpie Squad Leader, which give bonuses to your other minions. So it's not looking to do anything fast. It's looking to kind of build to something and very much playing a control type of game. So with that said, unlike Yellow, I'm going to keep this moving right along. So let's get into the action. Of course, I'm just going to go through the deck real quick. That way you guys can see what it is I'm playing with. As always, if you want me to do full-on deck tech, leave a comment below. I'll be happy to consider it for a future video. This is just a mono yellow list I threw together. I don't have too much to say about it. The only thing I will say, though, is it's probably not the most efficient build. Cards like this one, Vicious Cycle, which just straight out destroys a minion and lets our opponent draw a card. I did not put any copies in here. Also, Revelation of Zymek, which just draws 3 cards. I didn't put that in here either. Reason being is I want to show off more of the flavor of Yellow, show off some of the cool things Yellow can do, so I left these out in favor of some other more interesting cards. So maybe not the most efficient build, but I thought this was fun enough for mono yellow. So our path is going to be Turn of Seasons. Our power is going to be Impel. I've played these both on this channel before. You know I like them both, and they're both very good at what they do, so no surprise I put them in here. And then the first card I'm going to talk about is going to be Clay Effigy. It's just a 0/1, draws a card. If you can put this from an enemy minion, great. You'll prevent some damage for a turn, so very good for 1 mana thing. Then there's 4 copies of Maze Yatiku. I think that's how it's pronounced. But if you've played Yellow at all, you've definitely seen this card before. A 3 health defender is very good, and the fact that it will continue to draw cards as long as it remains untouched is also very, very good. So there's a reason why you see it in pretty much every Yellow build out there. Then I put 2 copies of Nazca Memorial. We have 28 minions in here, so and a few Serpent Dens, so there's going to be a lot of trades going on. You know, a lot of our minions are going to be dying, so this is a good way to trade off early in the game, and then once we get into our bigger minions in the mid to late game, we can drop them on this enchantment, and hopefully they'll be able to swing in for a whole lot of damage all at once. Then there's 3 copies of Venifang Mutant. It's just a 1/4 that gives Blight 1 when dealing combat damage to an enemy minion. And Blight, in case you don't know, at the start of a minion's turn, it'll get -1/-1. So it may not destroy an enemy minion right away, but it'll slowly wither it down to the size we can manage, or just outright kill it eventually. Then there's going to be 3 copies of Yahui. Yahui is just a nice defensive minion. It's a 2/3, but it can't take more than 2 damage in combat, so hopefully the opponent has to hit it with 2 minions instead of just 1 to destroy it. And 4 copies of Meso Libre. I'm sure you've seen him before. Meso is extremely annoying to deal with. Just an excellent, excellent tempo play. I would say probably one of the top 5 best cards in the game right now. When you drop it in the lane across from an opponent's minion, it'll stun that minion so it can't attack or do damage until the end of its next turn. And yeah, that's annoying. for your opponent. And that what it does for us, though, is it buys us time to figure out how to deal with the minion. It'll prevent an attack, or hopefully we can swing in with Mesa when it's ready to attack to destroy it. So a lot of uses for this card. And it's very pesky for our opponents to deal with. Then I have 2 copies of Poxbringer. This is a removal spell more than anything. You can crash this into an enemy minion. It'll deal 1 damage to it, and it'll also give Blight 2. So if the opponent's minion has 3 health or less, it'll just be dead at the start of their next turn. Then I have 3 copies of the aforementioned Serpent Den. This generates a 1/1 snake token if there isn't one on it at the start of your turn. So you can put this in front of an opponent's minion, and they can never attack you for damage because there's always a stupid little snake in front of it. This can be very annoying to deal with. It can stop a lot of damage from hitting you, and your opponent has to come up with a way to deal with the snake before it can swing in with its bigger minions. So it's just a great defensive enchantment to have. Then we have 1 copy of Wonder Drug. It gains us 4 life and draws us a card, but if we have 8 life or less, it gains us 8 life and draws us 2 cards. This is a great way to hose aggressive decks. They think they have you pinned, they think they're going to be able to swing for lethal, and then you play this out, you suddenly draw 2 cards, and you're out of range with your life total. So yeah, it's a good card draw and a good life gain. Then we have 3 copies of Black Cadejo, and this pairs nicely with 3 copies of White Cadejo. So with the Black Cadejo, whenever a minion dies, it'll deal 1 damage to our opponent. With White Cadejo, when a minion is created, it'll gain us 1 life. When a copy of both are on the battlefield, our opponent will take 1 damage and will gain 1 life whenever a minion is created or destroyed. And bear in mind, that does include the Serpent Den as well. So each time a snake is created, our opponent will take damage, will gain life. This is a win condition in this deck. If we have a copy both on the battlefield and the opponent doesn't have a way to deal with it, it's just going to bleed out our opponent very quickly and gain us a ton of life. So this is a must deal with card. Then there's 2 copies of Alama Ring. It just gives all our minions +1/+1. That's very good. So we'll put 2 copies in here. Then there's 2 copies of Misanthropia. I know I've said this already a couple times, but if you've played a yellow build before, you've definitely seen this card. It gives all the minions that are currently on the battlefield Blight 3, so it doesn't destroy everything immediately, but it will eventually destroy everything that it touches. Just an excellent, excellent sweeper. Then we have 1 copy of Zolia the Unclean. Zolia can give other minions Blight. It can give one of our minions +3/+0 permanently. Or if we can get her brand, our opponents will take 5 damage at the end of each of their turns, so it puts a very fast clock on them. So she kind of is a win condition herself, although to be honest, I've never actually seen her get that much energy because opponents tend to deal with her very quickly because she is such a pain because she can spread blight all over the place. Then we have 2 copies of Harvester. When it comes to the battlefield, we'll gain 3 life. If it's destroyed, we'll put a 0/3 Maze into our hand. And Maze, before I said, is very, very good. So, excellent card all around. And then we have a copy of Twin Blanc and 1 copy of Twin Juna. Both the toughness and the health are a little bit different, but both are basically the same thing. When one of the twins comes onto the battlefield, we'll put a 0 mana cost copy of the other into our hand, and then we can deploy that elsewhere on the battlefield. So basically, either one of these will put 9 power onto the battlefield. You can spread them out all over the place. So it's very tricky for our opponents to deal with. And as long as both copies are on the battlefield, they'll have overrun and regeneration, so they get even tougher to deal with. And finally, we have 1 copy of Sapo the Devourer. What can I say? Sapo is Sapo. He's warded, he destroys enemy minions, and if we want to sacrifice some of our own, he'll get even bigger. So he's just a big bad demon to deal with, and he's great to have at the top end of pretty much any yellow build. And as I said before, if you've played yellow, you've probably run into him. So that's all I've got to say about this deck. Without much further ado, let's get into a couple of games here. Alrighty, Game number 1. Our opponent is Tinktvi's 980, playing a blue-orange mid-range rainbow deck. I believe this is one of the featured decks. In our opening hand, yeah, that's a good opening hand. We have minions to play turns 1, 2, 3, and 4, so we should be able to curve out very nicely here. So let's just get right into the match. Burns a card and passes. We drew a Misanthropia, which is good. If things get out of hand, we have our sweeper to play on turn 5. But we'll just play a maze here. And our opponent passes second turn in the row. But yellow, being the slower color that is, we can't really take advantage of it. Serpent Den's a good pickup. We'll just play out Yahui here. Does our opponent have turn 3? They do. They have Parser Regulars, put right across the Yahui. If they want to chip away on Yahui for a couple turns, that's perfectly fine. We'll get our Serpent Den online. So now we're not really doing any damage here, but we're setting ourselves up nicely in a good defensive position. And if they want to chip away at Serpents for 3 turns, that's fine as well. We have White Kadeho. Play another Yahui, so they really don't have a lane to attack into. And right now we're just kind of looking for where we want to go with our game here. Do we maybe draw a Black Kadeho, start draining their life total? Maybe we'll get a bigger minion. Maybe we'll get one of the twins that we can really start swinging with. So we're not sure what we're doing yet. All right, second Misanthropia, don't need that. Get Poxbringer. That's a good removal. But Zolea's a good removal as well, so we'll have her start picking off some of their smaller minions. They put Dark Passenger on their regular. Normally that would trade with the Serpent anyway, but now they'll draw a card off of it. Alright, Doomcat takes out our maze. Put down another recruit. And Eleanor Thane. And we just drew the Black Kadeho, so now we know what we want to do with the deck. And I kind of make a misplay there. I should have waited to play the Black Kadeho first, so they take an extra point of damage. Let's say La Vie. They can play Seal of Exile on our Zolea. I've mentioned before, that's one you really want multiple targets for, but I guess she was enough of the pain that they had to remove it as best they could. And at this point, our opponent is just taking damage left and right. Anytime either of us play a minion or either of us have a minion that dies, they're taking damage and I'm gaining life. All right, they play out the worm. And we do have an answer for the worm, so our Black Kadeho can live. That's Meso Libre. We'll stun it. Then we have the Poxbringer. Deal damage. Now, because of Plague, they'll take another damage, so by the time it gets back to us, the worm can't attack, and we can take it out. Alright, they take out the White Kadeho, but at this point, they've taken a ton of damage. They've taken almost 20 damage from the Kadehos, and then, yeah, their total's low enough that we can just trade with the worm and then swing in for lethal with the Black Kadeho. So, the Kadehos really showed off their power there. If there are 2 on the battlefield, you're in a lot of trouble. They just drained our opponent right out, and we gained a ton of life off of it. And to get to that position, we had to play very defensively. You know, they didn't have any good lanes to attack into. We kept forcing them to make trade after trade after trade. And then once we got our win conditions in our hand, we were able to deploy those and just, you know, watch our opponent's life total plummet as Kadehos did their thing. So, yeah, that was kind of a quick match for Mono Yellow. But it shows off, you know, kind of the defensive side of it with its minions. You know, we weren't able to swing for much damage, but, you know, with the game we were playing with Kateos, we didn't actually have to get in for much damage. We could keep making trades, just play out more minions, and we were able to drain them that way. So, interesting way to win, and good game number 1. So, let's go on to game number 2. Okay, game 2. Our opponent is Zectulus? I guess that's what I'm going with. Our opponent is Zectulus, playing blue-yellow mid-range rainbow deck, and our opening hand is not the most spectacular, but it's decent enough. I mean, we've got stuff to do turns 1, 2, 3, and 4, so let's just go with it, see how this does. All right, we're going to burn the twin. We don't need that till later. Play Clay Effigy, draw a card, and that's our third Serpent's Den. So we should be able to get our snakes online this game, but we definitely don't need all 3 dens at once. Opponent plays Verdant Jungle. As long as that's occupied by a minion, it's going to give them an extra mana. So I want to put Venom Fang Mutant in front of it, so hopefully I can poke at whatever they play there. Alright, that's a Leprechaun's Coin, so they're ramping. And they play out Security Phalanx. That's not something that really wants to be poked, so I'll have to be patient, see if we can come up with a solution. Now I'll just play out Yahui. Alright, they're putting Bulwark, so they really want to keep that Security Phalanx on there to keep the extra mana. And we just top decked an Llama Ring. That's the perfect answer. So now my Venom Fang Mutant has enough power to do damage, enough health that it won't die. So as you can see, the Phalanx is just slowly shrinking now because it has Blight. That's Incubation Chamber. When they play a minion on it, it'll be stunned for the first couple turns, but then it'll have +3/+3. So I want to play Serpent Den in front of that. That way, if they do have something big come into play, it has to get around the snake somehow in order to do damage to us. And that's a Jotun Shatterfist. That's a big fellow with Overrun. And fortunately, we just top decked a Mesa Libre. That can stall him out, but for now I just want to play the Venom Fang Mutant. And I don't want to attack into it just yet, because it'll get +2/+0 when it takes damage. So I want to let it hit us first for less. Now it's a Thunderclap that took out most of our minions, so very unfortunate there. Alright, and we get another Mesa Libre, which is good. I'm not sure why I moved the Venom Fang Mutant there. I don't know what I was thinking. But it didn't really hurt us at all. But yeah, that wasn't the most mana efficient thing to do. It's unnecessary. So our Meso's going to have enough power to take out the Shatterfist. So we'll just make the trade. Hit him with the snake. And we redrew the Twin Juna that we burned on the first turn. There's the token copy Twin Blank, so we'll play them out on either end. We'll take the aggressive stance since the opponent doesn't have anything on board. That's a skilled hacktivist. That's going to draw them a card if it hits us. And that's Hyperborean. That's another large minion we have to come up with a solution for. Right, hit him with one of the twins. Serpent Den in front of the hacktivist. That way he can't get through and deal damage. And draw them a card. Alright, we'll put the Mesa Libre on the Hyperborean. I mean, next turn we could attack with the Libre and the Twin to finish it off, but I'd rather wait. I want the Twin to do damage to the opponent, so maybe we can find a better solution. And they play out a Godsbane Transport where there's no room to deploy its commandos, so that's a purely defensive move by the opponent. So we top decked another Mesa Libre, so I'm just stalling the Hyperborean another turn. Hopefully we can draw into Poxbringer or something. Help finish it off. I put Karen Henge on the transport and then Maelstrom next to it, so now it's really in a bind to play out its commandos, so they're not getting the best value out of it. But they really want to defend against the Twin. And I didn't get a solution, so I'll just trade both the minions to finish off the Hyperborean. And we top deck yet another Mesa Libre. I'll pin down the transport so it can't slide over. They play a Phalanx next to it anyway. And Daughter of the Forest, that's an Alpha Striker, so I have nowhere to attack through. And I top deck Misanthrope. I don't know what I did to appease the gods of top decking, but I'm sure glad that I did, because I've been just stupid lucky with some of my draws here. Alright. If you notice the Godsbane Transport, its health was in purple. And when the health is purple, that means there's something artificially keeping it alive, an ability or an enchantment or something like that. In this case, it was the Karen Henge. So once it moved over, it just straight up died. So something to be careful of when you're playing Mythgard. Alright, Yahui's going to get balanced back into her hand. I'll put Yahui in front of the Tailroot Worm. It's a 9/9, so it can take out all our mains at once because we have a black Kadeho in play. Alright, that's a Thunderclap. It's going to take out most of our minions, but it's also going to do damage to the opponent because of the Kadeho. Alright, I wanted to take out their Valkyrie Enforcer, so there's white Kadeho. It's going to gain us life whenever we play a minion. Giant Staircase to replace Verdant Jungle. And that's the black Kadeho, so now we have our Kadeho combo out once again. Play out Poxbringer. Deal damage, we'll gain life. Run the Poxbringer into the Tailed Worm, do damage, gain life. Alright, opponent's going to run into our Snake once again. They could have sequenced that a little bit better. They probably should have taken out the Kadeho first, but because they took out the Snake first, they took an extra point of damage. Alright, play the Memorial on the white Kadeho, because we're going to sack it to Magpie Sniper before it gets out of hand. Slider Snake over. And that was a misplay to slide Snake over. I should have gone the other direction with it. It just died to the Maelstrom. I forgot exactly when the Maelstrom did damage, so it is what it is. But we get our Harvester out on the Memorial, and they play False Molnir on it, but that's not going to really help because we have so much health it's not going to matter. So we'll just run that into the opponent, and we'll win the game. So that was a different win for us this time than it was last time. This is much more of the control type win of stalling them out. We had to wipe the board. We had to wait till we got the answers we needed, and then by the time our opponent's hand was depleted, we were able to play out the Harvester and just bash in for lethal damage. So, last game we had the Kateos out fairly early. We were able to get those online and just drain the opponent out. This one was much more of a traditional control type victory, which is stall the opponent out, and then once we get the big stuff, take our shots with it and win the game. And we were definitely able to do that. So between both games, I think that's a good example of what it is yellow can do. It's like I said, it's very slow, very methodical color. It does not want to do anything fast. So overall, 2 solid games from yellow. And, that's a good showing of what it can do. Well, once again, I'm going to start out my outro by saying, let me be honest with you guys. Of all the colors in this Color Wheel series, yellow is one I was looking forward to playing the absolute least. It's just a very slow, very grindy sort of color, and maybe that's your play style, maybe that's just me, but that being said, yellow's not weak by any means whatsoever. It's very good at what it does. It's good at playing defense, it's good at drawing cards, it's good at gaining you health like we saw in that last match. But it needs that second or even third color to give it that little more of an edge, to make it a little bit more aggressive, to pose a little more of a threat. So it very much fits in within the colors that we've seen so far. Because we saw red, which was the very fast, very hard-hitting color. We saw orange, which was the versatile mid-range color. And now we have the control color, which is yellow, which is a lot slower. But it's also very good at keeping you alive, keeping your opponent from taking over the board, and keeping things under control. So yellow, overall, very strong color, very controlling color. It'll keep, the game from slipping out of your hands, and it's a good addition to any deck that wants a little more control to it. So that's all I've got for today. Thank you all for tuning in once again. Hit that like and subscribe button below if you like what I'm doing, and I'll be back next week with the next one in our color series, which is going to be green. And I should also be back on Thursday with another video. Don't know exactly what I'm doing yet, but once again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you all for tuning in. I'll see you guys again next time.